So President Ramaphosa goes full on passive aggressive at Athol Trollip from ActionSA, who came at him about his bloated government with 1 million ministries and 1 billion deputy ministers. So in this video, we're gonna look at that situation. But if you go with me until my biblical reaction, you should realize that this is a very important principle for prosperous South Africa. So you ready? Press like and let's see what happened. But before we go to that clash, let's start by seeing what Ramaphosa himself said in 2018.
Development and transformation depend on a strong and capable state. It is critical that the structure and the size of the state is optimally suited to meet the needs of the people and ensure the most efficient allocation of public resources. We will therefore initiate a process to review the configuration, the number and the size of national government departments.
Yeah, nice. He's gonna review the size and number of government departments in 2018. I'm sure they had been finished by 2023, right? Well, let's hear. This is 2023.
We are establishing 2 new ministries. The first of these is the Minister for Electricity to deal with the immediate crisis of load shedding. The second is the Minister with specific responsibility for planning, monitoring and evaluation to focus greater attention on the performance of government. While this will result in an increase in the number of ministries in the short term, as indicated in the State of the Nation address, I have instructed the Presidency and the National Treasury to develop a proposal to rationalize government departments, entities, and programs to ensure greater efficiencies. This work will result in the reduction of the number of ministries, and it will inform the configuration of government going into the next administration. So we will be reducing the number of ministries as we move forward.
Okay, so that process from 2018 is starting again in 2023, but the number of ministries are growing. Okay, let's go through to 2025. Maybe that process had happened and the number of ministries, the number of ministers, deputy minister, cabinet size had come down. Let's check.
The question is whether the Cabinet intends to approve a constitutional amendment bill to abolish the position of deputy ministers, given the amount of money spent on salaries, travel and VIP protection, and if not, whether the position of deputy ministers will be retained as a means of patronage that takes high priority over the needs of the unemployed, hungry and hopeless. The Honourable President.
Since the advent of our democracy in 1994, deputy ministers have played an important role in assisting ministers in the performance of their functions and responsibilities. In announcing appointments to the National Executive following the May elections last year, I indicated that due to the need to ensure that the National Executive is inclusive of all parties that are part of the GNU, it was not possible to reduce the number of portfolios, for instance, in the Executive. Deputy ministers appointed in June last year continue to add value to the work of the government and to support the meaningful way the implementation of the priorities of the 7th administration. Now, yes, we are always concerned about the size of the executive, as we are also concerned about the size of deputy ministers. You may recall that right at the beginning when we constituted this government, we did address this issue and said that my own wish was that we should have a much smaller executive.
Yeah, right.
That has always been my declared wish.
I'm sure.
But the need to accommodate various parties that are part of the GNU,
Your friends,
that are part of the
your
GNU,
comrades.
resulted in us having the exact size of the executive that we have now. All my colleagues in the GNU accepted that, yes, it would have been ideal to have a much smaller executive. However, the need to have a GNU which is properly representative meant that we needed to have the type of architecture that we have. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
First supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Trollip.
Honourable President, you're the steward of South Africa, and despite your so-called wish that your cabinet would be smaller, it has grown like topsy. You didn't cut any of the ANC positions, you just added GNU, Kapezu. Honourable President, you recently appointed an acting Minister of Police who incidentally says there's no such constitutional provision. He's the Minister of Police, because you couldn't promote two of the deputies. You didn't trust them to become ministers. You also fired the Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry and Competition 75 days ago, and that position still remains vacant. These two examples illustrate just how insignificant and redundant these positions are. Stewardship, Mr. President, is well explained in the book of Matthew, where three of the minister's servants were given 10, 5, and 1 bags of gold to look after. Two of them increased the value of what they were given, and they were rewarded. One buried what they were given and was rebuked. Why are you burying what you've been entrusted with by maintaining such a costly, bloated, and ineffective cabinet? Will you and your party support my private member's bill, constitutional amendment, to do away with deputy ministers so that the cost of these redundant members can be redirected to the betterment of our country? Simple question. Will you support it? It's coming. Will you support the private member's bill? If you want a smaller cabinet.
The Honourable President, Honourable Trollip, your time has expired. The Honourable President.
What Honourable Trollip is saying sounds like a threat. So my response to that, rather than say I don't respond to threats, is the following. My response is, I would really like to look at that bill. I think, please have the bill forwarded so that we look at it. I'm not able to respond in any way whatsoever until I see the contents of the bill. Now, therefore, much as I said, it sounds like a threat. It isn't a threat. No, I want to actually compliment you and say, I don't see it as a threat. I see it as a very meaningful contribution, because you are concerned, as I am, of the size of our executive. And the size of the executive we now have is a result of the outcome of our elections, where we had to put together a government of national unity with 10 political parties that sat down and negotiated the structure of the government we have. Now, whether we like it or not, it is what we have. Ideally, Honourable Trollip, I would want a much smaller executive
So there you go. He says a few things. Number one, I did this with the blessing of Rise Mzansi, DA, IFP, and all of them. We negotiated. They agreed. Number two, I really want a smaller cabinet, even though I just keep increasing it and keep promising to decrease it. Number three, he says, Athol Trollip, don't you dare threaten me. But it's not a threat. In fact, thank you so much. Forward it through to me. So, today, ActionSA submits constitutional amendment bill to the president at his request. ActionSA has substituted our constitutional bill directly through to him for his consideration. I'm sure he'll consider it. Following our direct question in Parliament about whether he or the ANC will support our bill. Of the bloated executive of 32 ministers and 43 deputy ministers, number one is that it will get rid of the role of a deputy minister entirely, meaning it would chop it in more than half, get rid of the 43 positions, and mandates parliamentary vetting of all cabinet appointments. I'm not sure what this will mean, but interesting. Empowers the National Assembly to remove individual ministers. So in the way that Parliament is able to do a vote of no confidence in their president, and when they fall, their whole cabinet falls, he wants Parliament to be able to go for a specific minister, pass a vote of no confidence in one minister, and bring them down. I'm not sure I like it. A separation of powers. The ministers are the president's ministers. So, can sound nice when you have a loser of a president, which I didn't say whether we do or not, but it can sound nice when you have an absolute capital L loser of a president. But what will happen when you have a good president and Parliament can get too involved in them running their cabinet? And it's to expand the number of ministers who may be appointed from outside of Parliament from 2 to 4. And it deals with the president being able to change the ministerial handbook unilaterally, and a parliamentary review of all the perks of ministers, and there would be no deputy ministers. So he's asking Ramaphosa if he'll support this. I doubt Ramaphosa will support this. Generally, as a general rule, this is what would happen here. EFF, MK, ANC will not support this, except if they support it for spiteful reasons against the ANC. But their philosophy doesn't support this. Rise, Bossa, IFP, and those kind of parties will kind of dilly-dally in the middle, and you won't know if they're in or out. Normally, DA, Freedom Front Plus, ActionSA, ACDP will support that the government be brought down to the right size. The DA would say right size, smaller. Now, I don't know if the DA will support it while they are in the GNU, but it would be an opportunistic non-supporting to be a political move. But I know if it was up to them, they would support it to come down. If it's up to the Freedom Front, they'll support it. ACDP will support it. Then the rest of these smaller parties will go with whatever is opportunistically best for them at the moment. So, I don't know if it will go through. Here's my biblical reaction. This will be the behavior of the king who will reign over you. He'll take your sons and appoint them for his own chariots. He'll appoint captains over thousands, captains over 50s. We're close to that with our deputy ministers. He'll take your daughters to be perfumers, cooks, and bakers. He'll take the best of your fields, your vineyards, your olive groves, give them to his servants, right? That's BEE, expropriation without compensation. All of it is to take from private citizens so you can give it to comrades. He'll take 1/10 of your grain and your vintage, give it to his officers. That's why they're happy to increase taxes. He'll take your male servants, your female servants, your finest young men, your donkeys, and put them to his work. He'll take 1/10 of your sheep, and you will cry out in that day. This will end in tears. You will cry out in that day because of the king whom you have chosen for yourselves, and the Lord will not hear you in that day. The reason why it's dangerous to support these parties that keep going on about how the government must manage the economy, because that management also comes with departments, committees, agencies, and all sorts of things. Before long, you work to pay government salaries. Right now, I believe 38% of all taxes that are collected go to pay a government official who still can't keep the taps running, who still can't keep the hospitals decent, who still can't put criminals in jail, is failing in so many ways. That's why it doesn't work running with these nice sounding stuff that seems to be able to do something. At the end of the day, it's just divide and conquer. There is no way that Mr. Ramaphosa wants a smaller cabinet or smaller anything. Everything he does is to create jobs for his comrades. This is the MO, the method of operation. That's why no man can serve two masters. Either he'll love the one or hate the other, or he'll despise the one and honor the other. You cannot serve both God and Karl Marx. So let's make history together. Cheers.